the streets of Baton Rouge, Kentrell Golden, better known as NBA Youngboy, went through trauma that most people never recover from.
It's all about staying alive. It don't matter if you in that setting or you out that setting. Ain't no hiding from gun violence. Ain't no hiding from violence, period.
This is the latest in a rash of recent shootings in the area over the past few days, including one that left an 18-year-old dead.
It's either jail or death, like literally.
Abandoned by his parents, losing the people he loved, talking about wanting to die before even becoming an adult.
Don't it feel kind of like you beat death in a certain kind of way?
Plenty of times. Sometimes you want to die though, so you don't feel nothing no more.
I don't think you really feel like that.
You gotta talk more.
And yet, he survived and rose to become one of the biggest artists on the planet. That contradiction is one I just couldn't ignore. By tracing his story, his lyrics, and his interviews, I set out to understand the psychology behind Youngboy, his pull between good and evil, whether his remorse is genuine, and why he mocks the dead. Is it pure evil, or is there something deeper? His mind is layered. We'll never fully know what goes on inside, but the more you learn, the more you get drawn in. So the question remains, does he really want change? Or is he a manipulator, fooling the world? This is the dark psychology of NBA Youngboy.
I have all bad days. I think I need help. I got an anger problem.
On October 20th, 1999, in the city of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Kentrell Golden, better known as NBA Youngboy, was born. His parents, Sharonda Golden and Jeffrey Staden, wouldn't end up doing much parenting throughout his childhood, and from the beginning, Kentrell's life was marked by events that would shape him forever. In 2009, Jeffrey was involved in an armed robbery alongside his brother Dallas, where he pistol whipped a store clerk and shot him in the leg in an attempt to get money from the safe. He was sentenced to 55 years in prison. Media often claim Youngboy was 8 when this happened, but the filings show December 2009, which would have made him at least 10 years old. Either way, it hardly mattered. Youngboy himself said he hadn't seen his father since he was 4.
I still call him daddy though to make him feel like somebody, but I ain't seen that dude since I was 4 years old.
But more difficult things happened in Youngboy's life before he turned 10. Somewhere around age 5 to 8, he had to leave his mother Sharonda and go live with his grandmother Alice. Asked if this was what he wanted, he said he had no choice. His mother would kick him out of the house because she put other men before him.
I ain't had no choice, cause my mama, she all about a nigga, and I'ma say it still, she all about a nigga. She used to put me before, and she'll put me out and shit. So I always stay with my grandma, like my grandma took care of me.
These childhood events caused serious attachment problems for Youngboy. Having a father who left when he was 4 and a mother who would put him out of the house likely made him feel like the people who should protect him might abandon him. Living with his grandmother helped, but being forced to move was just another disruption. And this kind of unstable childhood often makes a child constantly on edge, easily hurt by rejection, and prone to acting out through fighting, breaking rules, and taking risks. It can also lead to relationship problems later on, where they either try to control others or swing between clinging to people and pushing them away, all to avoid being abandoned again. When we look at the full picture of his life, it's clear that many of Youngboy's personal struggles and flaws stem from not having stable parents during his childhood. Youngboy later admitted that at just 7 years old, he picked up a family member's discarded cigarette from the floor and started smoking what was left.
How long have you smoked?
I've been smoking cigarettes since I was 7 years old.
Damn.
My God, Dad, I think this ran away from the army. I used to be watching that smoking cigarettes, and every time he throw that bitch out, I go grab it.
Grab it, and you smoke what was left?
Yeah.
Damn.
The first time he tried smoking was probably just because he was copying his godfather. Kids often get curious about what grown-ups do, but just being around smokers isn't enough by itself. Children tend to copy behaviors when several factors come together. When the cigarettes are easy to get, when there's no strict parenting, when smoking seems normal in their community, and when they feel that little thrill of breaking rules. A 7-year-old child would only start smoking out of curiosity when given the chance. It only becomes a habit when they learn it makes them feel better temporarily. Nicotine briefly reduces stress, so if Youngboy was feeling bad and the cigarette helped him feel better, he would likely keep doing it. This is called negative reinforcement. where a behavior is strengthened by the removal of an unpleasant or unwanted stimulus after the desired behavior occurs. In the podcast, he suggested he never stopped smoking after that point, and when a child that young develops such a coping mechanism, it's a clear sign that things in their life weren't okay. One thing that was okay for him, however, was his relationship with his grandmother Alice. Once in her care, she did her best to give him the things he wanted when she had the opportunity to. She stepped up, became his provider, and she made him feel loved.
My grandma, she was nice. She gave me anything I wanted,
Right.
if she had it. I always stay with my grandma, like my grandma took care of me. My grandma gave me anything I wanted.
So you was kind of spoiled by your grandma, you would say.
Yeah, my grandma made me feel loved.
He would later refer to her as his everything, his protector, and his comfort.
My grandmother was my everything. That was my protection, my comfort.
Where his parents failed, his grandma succeeded, but that success was short-lived, as in 2010, when Youngboy was around 11 years old, she'd pass away from heart failure. In the song Life, Youngboy would say, when my grandma left, I couldn't do nothing but cry. In the same year, likely prior to his grandma's death, he also suffered another tragedy. Youngboy had a close friend who was about 6 years older named David Cobb and went by Lil Dave. Dave taught him the streets, in Youngboy's words, how to smoke, how to shoot dice, and how to cop the J's. But on March 27, 2010, there was a picnic honoring teenage gunshot victims, and after a shootout occurred, Dave was hit and killed. Youngboy would reference the emotions he felt after Dave's death, saying, "I'm way too young to feel this pain. You taught me everything. Now you're in the grave. I still ain't get over what they did to you. I remember everything Lil Dave said. The image of them killing you stuck in my head." And more expressing his desire to get revenge on Dave's killers. At just 10 years old, both losses would have broke him for sure. And with a mother incapable of looking after him and an imprisoned father, Youngboy was sent to a group home, and his time there didn't get any better. He said, "I used to get beat up inside the group home for no reason. The other boys would put their hands on me, and I would look up like, 'Why are you hitting me, bro? What did I do?' It made me discover another side of me that I never glorified or liked. I found out how to be the person you don't want to do that with. Before then, I never understood all the evilness or wrong because I was showered by so much love from this one person, being his grandmother." This is Youngboy admitting that being bullied is what caused him to become violent as a way to protect himself when he felt threatened, and that violence became a part of his identity from that point onwards, even potentially contributing to his self-proclaimed anger issues.
I have all bad days. I think I need help. I got an anger problem. I don't know how to react to certain shit, but I'm learning though.
Right.
I be going to anger management class and all that shit.
His grandmother became his safe place after his parents couldn't be relied on, and her death deeply hurt him emotionally. This loss, coming after his father's absence, his mother's failure to be present, and then Lil Dave's murder, created layer upon layer of trauma, which in psychology we call cumulative trauma, a person's total exposure to multiple layers of traumatic events and experiences over time, rather than just one single incident. These painful experiences made him constantly on edge and filled with anger. Being beaten in the group home taught him to expect the worst from others in the future. He started to see innocent actions as threats and would respond with anger when he felt attacked. He wasn't born impulsive, it was a learned response to protect himself. His environment reinforced these behaviors. Between what he saw Lil Dave doing in the streets and how the boys in the group home acted, Youngboy learned that being violent was sometimes necessary. The people around him essentially trained him to be aggressive to survive. When you look at that, paired with the fact his dad went away for armed robbery, it's hard for Youngboy not to understand masculinity as violence, crime, and aggression, which would set the precedent for the direction he took with his music. From young, he always wanted to be a rapper, and in the 9th grade, Youngboy dropped out of high school. He claimed it was to pursue his dream of becoming a music artist.
What grade did you drop out at night? And what was the reasoning behind that?
I have a dream to chase. Well, I'm chasing the dream. I want to rap. I don't want to focus on school. I feel that all I need to do is know how to count and read.
But conveniently, it wasn't long after he'd started getting more into the streets, saying after his grandma died, he was pulled in and enticed by robberies and stealing.
I grew up stealing, taking from people and shit like that. Like, man, well, at first shit, my grandma used to take care of me. When my grandma died, other shit started catching my attention at a younger age. I used to ain't go to school, breaking houses all by myself. I'm talking about coming out the window with the TV, me jumping out the window, TV falling all on me. Like I used to be trying to get it, man.
However, he didn't go unpunished for his crimes, and when he was 14, he was arrested for a robbery and did 6 months in a juvenile detention.
I got booked for robbery at my age 14. I did like 6 months in Toulouse. That's because they home, like, for me. I guess bad kid. I ain't no bad kid though.
He claimed being in that detention helped him know his purpose and helped him gain a tunnel vision on writing music, as he wrote 25 songs within that 6 months and recorded it when he got home, dropping his Life Before Fame mixtape that got his name out there, at least locally, and he returned right back to the streets of Baton Rouge. He claimed that living in Baton Rouge was more a game of survival rather than living. It didn't matter if you were a gang member or a civilian, as gun violence was prevalent regardless, and the only outcomes remained jail or death.
Man, Baton Rouge shit, it's all about staying alive. It don't matter if you in that setting or you out that setting. Ain't no hiding from gun violence. Ain't no hiding from violence, period. It's either jail or death, like literally. Ain't no living out there.
And he wasn't exaggerating. Between 2011 and 2016, Baton Rouge's homicide rate was roughly 4 to 6 times the national average. For example, in 2012, there were 67 murders recorded in a city with around 230,000 residents at the time, meaning their rate was about 6 times the national average that year, placing it amongst one of the most violent in the nation. But that gave Youngboy an advantage. He knew he wanted to rap anyway, and this new involvement in the streets gave him the material to rap about. One thing that's been prevalent in Youngboy's career has been the discussion of whether his raps are truthful or fabricated, with examples like calling himself Murder Man or implying he's killed 7 people. In my opinion, I don't think Youngboy is a killer. However, Youngboy from a young age witnessed the violence around him and decided to tell stories through the lens of certain characters from his neighborhood. Just because he didn't commit certain crimes himself, it doesn't mean he can't convey similar emotions or articulate certain situations from just being in close proximity to it. He even admits that he just wanted to be a rapper and entering the streets was simply due to circumstance. And jail, shootouts, and all the other street stuff weren't in his plans. And if he knew they would happen, he wouldn't have joined.
I ain't never knew everything was gonna go the way it went. Like, but I wanted to rap since I was a baby, and I did it though. But as far as jail, shootouts, and all that other shit, I ain't know it was gonna go that way. And if I did, I probably wouldn't even did none of it.
Youngboy would meet a friend called 33 in his area, and while Sharonda still hadn't got herself together, 33's mother, Monique, would accept Youngboy as a sort of adoptive son and let him stay at theirs. And this would at least give him some stability for the insane twists and turns life was going to bring his way. If you look at the cover for his 2015 mixtape Life Before Fame, you'll see a logo in the corner for TBG, aka Top Boy Gorilla, a music label from Baton Rouge. At some point, both Youngboy and 33 joined TBG, but due to Youngboy apparently not getting enough pay or enough spotlight from TBG, he and 33 left and created their own crew, NBA, which stood for Never Broke Again. Throughout his teenage years, Youngboy would be super consistent with dropping music and garner a decent fanbase. His breakout song was 38 Baby, which he dropped in August 2016 when he was just 16 years old, and in October and November of 2016, he dropped the album titled 38 Baby and the mixtape Mind of a Menace 3, which had big features like Kevin Gates and 21 Savage, and this would cause his name to quickly become known and rise him up the ranks. With everything stacked against him as a child, he had the chance to overcome these odds and find success in music, but one situation would nearly ruin things forever and could have prevented the Youngboy we know today. In that same month he dropped Mind of a Menace 3, his cousin Keandre Ricks, who also rapped under the name Buzilla, would be shot and killed at just 18 years old. Buzilla and Youngboy were seemingly very close at a younger age, so there's no doubt his death was painful to learn about. But as I mentioned, his experiences in his youth made him have that reactive aggression to things against him. He became a kid who doesn't sit on an issue and fights back, so it wouldn't be long before he and his NBA crew sought revenge. In the following morning at 9:30 AM, a vehicle containing Youngboy and 3 of his NBA affiliates pulled up and started shooting at a porch on Nebraska Street in Baton Rouge.
Yeah, Greg, we're actually at the intersection of East Harrison and Nebraska Street, just steps away from where that shooting happened earlier today at this home behind me. This is the latest in a rash of recent shootings in the area over the past few days, including one that left an 18-year-old dead.
None of his intended targets were hit, but the police would arrest and catch Youngboy plus his NBA members by the end of the month. Youngboy spent December 2016 to August 2017 in jail awaiting updates before he ended up pleading guilty to an aggravated assault with a firearm charge. The judge handed him a suspended 10-year prison term with a 3-year period of active supervised probation, meaning he'd have to behave for the next 3 years, or he'd have to serve 10 years in prison. There were also special court-ordered restrictions, such as no social media postings, not leaving the state of Louisiana for 6 months, to refrain from any bars or clubs, and a few more. It was a wake-up call for Youngboy, because at this point, even at just 17 years old, he had 4 kids. Caden in 2016, Cameron also in 2016, Taylon in 2017, as well as Kamiri. He would find out through DNA results that Cameron wasn't his biological son, but he chose to keep raising him regardless. He had a chance with music to make it out if he just kept his nose clean, and that was the plan before he'd even got the sentencing, as he was released on bail in May of 2017. Almost immediately after being released, he'd finished recording one of his most iconic songs to date, Untouchable, a song that perfectly paints a picture of his state of mind around the time, saying lines like, "Get out of BR, move to LA, where I ain't gotta keep a tool." Showing unlike some rappers who get rich and stay in the hood, Youngboy wanted to get out of Baton Rouge and move towards an area like LA where he hasn't got people trying to kill him. He says this was because Baton Rouge created a part of him that he doesn't want to keep anymore.
Shit, just life lessons, the challenges, the everyday life in this fucking state made me who I am. Standing up, being strong, my situations I went through made me who I am. But BR did make a part of me. But honestly, that part of me that it made, I don't want that shit no more. Meek told me I gotta get out of Baton Rouge cause I was gonna die, like, cause he experienced this shit before he was young boy.
He also vowed to never jeopardize this and lose it all again, claiming he really was trying to change. Then in August 2017, he dropped a mixtape called AI Youngboy, which would reach an impressive 24 on the Billboard 200 charts, and due to all his music success, he would end up signing a $2 million deal with Atlantic Records. His arrest and that suspended 10-year sentence that same month was a warning shot for Youngboy, showing him exactly what was at stake and potentially marking a turning point away from crime. His 4 children, a record deal, and his music reaching new levels of success gave him new positive reinforcement and daily structure, helping him stay out of trouble. When he dropped Untouchable back in May, it showed how he was rebuilding his identity, changing how he saw himself from just someone trying to survive the streets to a professional artist trying to take it serious. And this is called narrative identity reconstruction, where Youngboy is rewriting his life path, vowing to learn from his mistakes. Meanwhile, his plan to leave Baton Rouge was a practical step to avoid trouble by removing himself from the places and people that might lead him back to criminal behavior.
I know you said when you're able to, you want to leave Baton Rouge. Where you want to go?
I want to move to California because it feels different. I feel like I ain't got to worry about what I got to worry about here. I ain't got to worry about police. You got to worry about that everywhere. But I feel like
you definitely got to worry about that everywhere.
I feel like as much though, we ain't really got to tow no guns. I can't tow no gun right now. But nobody around me got to have no gun at all.
But unfortunately, just because Youngboy wanted to change, it didn't mean change was easy. And with rap, beef always seems to follow. There'd been an issue between Youngboy and a man named Garrett Burton, who rapped under the name G Money. They actually used to be affiliates when Youngboy was with TBG, who G Money rapped for. But after Youngboy left, they no longer got along. At first it would start off as some subliminal dissing between them, but G Money did an interview where he exposed the reasons Youngboy is mad at him. He said one is because Youngboy had feelings pent up inside before leaving TBG, and he only feels comfortable getting it off his chest now with his newfound money and success. And 2, that G Money slept with Youngboy's sister, and maybe that might also be making him mad.
Where did it go south?
It really ain't just like when, leave off on the bad note. Like everything was still all good until he started, like doing his own thing, getting him a little buzz, getting a little money, and he just got the big head and just started like the feelings he been feeling probably deep down inside that he was scared to put out. He let that out once he got a name and got from down here. He started letting this shit out how he probably been feeling. He mad about his sister too though.
About his sister?
Yeah, I had f***ed her a long time ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's mad about that.
This caused them to go back and forth many times over social media, both announcing how much they dislike each other.
I know real money, man. The shit you do don't impress me, man. You hear me? You know what I'm saying? Copycat ass. The shit you see me do, you wanna do, but you supposed to be up though.
Hey, nigga, what you don't like me or something like that rap shit? What you don't, I'm saying like, what you got something against me? Say that damn man, don't be on Instagram that shit doing in 2 different states. You know it real. Stop playing.
But it would be G Money who musically would take away the subliminals and come direct at Youngboy in the song Industry, which dropped at the end of August 2017. But 2 weeks later, on September 10th, G Money would end up dead after being shot and killed outside of a recording studio. But instead of jumping to diss the death of the person he had beef with, Youngboy instead released a more reflective song a month later named Poor One, where he started the song saying, "Remember smoking weed with your little brother? Matter of fact, I used to call you my big brother. Then you went and did some foul stuff and had sex with my sister, then threw it in my face in front of the people on Insta." This is Youngboy attributing the blame to G Money sleeping with his sister, even though, as G Money mentioned, he was scared to show these feelings at the time.
He wasn't really tripping on it back then, though, you know what I'm saying? He be calling me big brother and shit, you hear me? I guess he just let that fame and shit get to his head. Now he feel like he just knew whoever he supposed to be, whoever he called himself.
Although Youngboy would subliminally diss G Money later down the line many years later, it was interesting to see him not capitalize on it more at the time. Either he genuinely felt some remorse for how the relationship turned sour and ended up deadly, or this was a way to stay out of trouble legally, since one of his affiliates, Lil Pap, real name DeAndre Fields, was arrested for the murder of G Money, but then down the line took a plea deal for accessory after the fact and got sentenced to 5 years. And after this conflict, Youngboy would take his career to even higher heights. Youngboy didn't slow down musically, and his fans loved his range of versatility in his music. He can make introspective and emotional music, but also make the violent killer music just as well. In his songs, he refers subtly at murders he's either done or hired people to do for him, but due to the fact he's never been arrested for murder, it lets fans run wild with imagination or speculation, boosting his image. They wonder, is Youngboy really a killer? And I think Youngboy feeds into that, as his fans put his murder songs into its own category of Youngboy's music. In the song Dead Trolls he later dropped in 2020, he even raps, "7 murders in my hometown, tell them I did that." He definitely wanted to be associated with violence and murders, and knew his fans liked him rapping about it. But whether he's actually murdered anyone isn't up for discussion, since he's not a convicted killer, nor does he have any strong ties to a murder. But he definitely isn't trying to shy away from that title if his music is anything to go by. One area where Youngboy might have struggled to control his emotions was in his relationship with Jania Michelle. On February 24th, 2018, hotel footage showed him slamming Jania and forcefully dragging her back into her room. Earlier, I mentioned how the group home bullying taught him to respond with violence when he felt threatened. The Jania incident can be seen as a tragic extension of that same pattern of reactive aggression, which was spilling into his intimate life. Publicly, Jania defended him, saying they were just playing. That defense makes it difficult to explore the event in depth, but it's not for me to define the nature of their relationship. What it does show is how trauma can distort emotional expression. Instead of communicating hurt or fear or whatever emotion he was feeling at the time, it comes out as aggression. Whether or not this reflects abuse, it reflects a man whose early survival habits don't always translate into healthy relationships. 2018 was a great year for his music career though. He released Outside Today, which reached number 31 on the Billboard Hot 100. A few months later, his debut studio album, Until Death Call My Name, hit number 8 on the Billboard 200, becoming his first top 10 album. At just 18 years old, he had already lived through enough experiences to create music that connected with and entertained many fans. However, achieving such fame at a young age likely put tremendous pressure on his mental health, but that would have only been accelerated by the death of one of his closest friends. Desmond Hardnett, known as Big Dump, played a crucial role in Youngboy's rise to fame. They became close friends as Youngboy's career grew, and eventually, Big Dump became his manager. But on May 4th, 2018, just weeks after Youngboy released Until Death Call My Name, tragedy struck. Big Dump was killed when a car drove by his uncle's house, and someone fired multiple shots at him while he was talking with family and friends. Youngboy was deeply affected by this loss. In September of that year, he released the song R.I.P. Dump, where he expressed his grief, telling Dump things haven't been the same since he left, as well as promising to avenge his friend's death. After the murder of Big Dump, people blamed TBG. Since G Money died, TBG had new main members, including Fredo Bang, Lit Yoshi, and Boulevard Quick. These rappers often mention Big Dump's death in their songs, either hinting that they were involved, or directly disrespecting his fate. The murder was never solved. However, based on their own lyrics that seemed to admit involvement, Lit Yoshi and Boulevard Quick were suspected of killing Dump. Whether this is true or not, their disrespect went further. Boulevard Quick even argued online with Youngboy's mother Sharonda and insulted her appearance, saying she looks like a man.
Yeah, man. Youngboy, mom. Tell me about that. She holla. You look like a man, though. You look like a punk. Boy, that mama. Play with me first. That hoe.
Despite his fame, Youngboy and his group felt they needed to respond to the ongoing conflict. On November 26, 2018, shortly after midnight, a shooting occurred at an apartment complex where Boulevard Quick, real name Ashton Wells, lived. When police arrived, they found Ashton with gunshot wounds and he was pronounced dead at the scene. A month later, Youngboy released a song called My Mama Say, with lyrics that seemed to hint at some sort of involvement in the incident. In the song, he explicitly says, "That man dead and you can't bring him back from talking," and "Catch that little boy who been dissing, shoot that man in his face." In years later, he would hint at Boulevard Quick's death in his songs and make fun of what happened. He even spoke on the conflict between Boulevard Quick and his mother Sharonda in a leaked song, saying, "Spoke on my mama, I ain't wanna talk, I end up killing a man." Although he uses "I" in his lyrics, it's more likely that if he was involved at all, he would have paid someone else to commit violence for him using rap money. He seems too smart to do all these things himself, but paying for violence is still deeply wrong. Paying someone else instead of doing it himself might make it easier for him to justify harmful actions in his mind. This is called moral disengagement, a way people convince themselves that harmful actions are okay through excuses like, "he deserved it," or "this is just how things work in our world." His reason could have been to stop other TBG members from disrespecting Dump, or maybe to strengthen his dangerous image. But since there's no real proof beyond his song lyrics, this is just guesswork. He might simply be claiming involvement to boost his music career. But in 2019, Youngboy had a year that didn't entirely go his way. At this point, he'd blown up from music and was a rap star getting millions. But with such close ties to the streets, violence would follow him wherever he went. In May of 2019, Youngboy had been invited to perform at a Rolling Loud festival in Miami amongst other big names. But that same weekend, TBG member and Youngboy's rival Lit Yoshi was spotted driving around Miami with a gun, suggesting he might have been there specifically for one person. And stupidly, Youngboy would make a tweet and leave his location, Sunny Isles Beach, attached to the tweet. This revealed he was likely staying at the Trump International Beach Resort Hotel. Hours later, when Youngboy and his crew left the hotel, someone in a black Cadillac Escalade drove by and shot at them. Youngboy's group, who had legal firearms, shot back. The shooting injured Youngboy's girlfriend in the shoulder and grazed the 5-year-old boy. But most tragically, Mohammed Jaradi, a 43-year-old car rental worker who was simply sitting in a van nearby, was killed by a stray bullet.
Shots fired in the middle of the day on a Sunday afternoon. Right now, police are trying to figure out who pulled the trigger. Who was that person trying to hit? We know, according to police, it wasn't the man who was killed, a man who was wrapping up his workday, just minding his own business. 43-year-old Mohammed Jaradi shot dead in Sunny Isles Beach. An employee of Hertz rental car hit by a stray bullet as he sat in his van in a parking lot along Collins Avenue Sunday afternoon. Friends of Mohammed Jaradi remembering him on social media, calling him a beautiful soul with a beautiful smile.
Despite being detained at the scene, Youngboy somehow managed to slip away and later performed at the Rolling Loud Festival that night. Investigators then had to determine who fired the first shot, as that person could face murder charges for Jaradi's death. Youngboy's lawyer would claim this was an assassination attempt on Youngboy, and that Youngboy wishes it was him instead of Jaradi, even offering to pay the funeral costs. However, due to the fact he was still on that 10-year suspended sentence probation, and he now had a gun-related incident in public, he'd have to return to Baton Rouge for a court hearing, and was promptly jailed. In his latest song, No Understand, Youngboy mentioned this incident. He rapped, "I feel the pain of the innocent. When I did my time, I ain't feel nothing. It was for that man who was heaven sent, for that child who was grazed. She wasn't supposed to deal with this shit." He's basically saying he believed his jail time was fair punishment because innocent people were hurt and killed in the violence surrounding him. I believe Youngboy might have felt real guilt, not just putting on a show for the public. His actions, saying he wished he'd been shot instead, offering to pay funeral costs, and saying in his songs that his jail time was justified, could show true remorse. But these same actions could also be calculated moves to manage his public image and legal situation whilst on probation. Signs of genuine guilt would include privately helping Girardi's family without publicizing it and showing consistent remorse when no one's watching, in therapy or private sessions, but of course I could never know if that happened. On the other hand, if he later celebrated the incident in songs, downplayed its seriousness, continued taking the same risks, or only showed remorse when facing legal trouble, his guilt would seem less genuine. This is where the idea of cognitive dissonance comes in. Cognitive dissonance happens when a person holds two conflicting beliefs or values at the same time, creating psychological tension. To reduce that discomfort, people often rationalize, justify, or switch between narratives. For Youngboy, you can see this conflict clearly. On one side, he shows guilt, saying innocent lives lost made his jail time fair, even wishing that it had been him instead of Girardi. But on the other side, after this he continues making music that glorifies violence, celebrates retaliation, and reinforces the image of being untouchable. Both can't fully coexist, yet he lives in both worlds. His remorse may be genuine in private moments, but his public identity demands aggression, and the tension between those two selves is what fuels so much of his inner conflict. But I'm willing to take his word for it that despite his gangster bravado, innocent lives being caught in the crossfire of his own beef definitely added some guilt to his conscience, even if temporary. He remained in jail for 90 days and was released in August 2019. But it wasn't all good, because he was ordered to be on house arrest for 14 months. Even after being put on house arrest, Youngboy didn't slow down the music. In fact, it might have got even better. He was dialed in and focused on perfecting his craft, and in October 2019, he dropped his 12th mixtape and one of his best projects till this day, AI Youngboy 2. The songs became fan favourites, and the mixtape gave YB his first #1 on the Billboard 200 album charts. In the same month, the single Bandit by Juice WRLD featuring Youngboy reached #10 on the Billboard Hot 100 singles charts, Youngboy's highest to date. He was becoming a worldwide phenom at just 19-20 years old, and he was quickly becoming one of the most successful rappers of his generation. Around 2019 to 2020, he was literally the most watched artist on YouTube in the US, beating Drake and Taylor Swift. That online dominance is unique to him and worth emphasizing so you can understand his impact. He was far from your average rapper from the hood. And good fortune continued in December 2019 when the judge ended his probation. Judge Bonnie Jackson noted that Youngboy had followed all probation conditions after the Miami shooting. She believed he was sincerely trying to change his life. Youngboy was grateful to Judge Jackson, saying, "She gave me opportunity after opportunity. She really helped me grow. She helped me get to this point, to be honest." This growth suggests several important aspects of Youngboy's psychological state at this point. There's a sense of recognition of authority and guidance. His gratitude towards Judge Jackson shows he acknowledges the positive influence of someone who held him accountable while still believing in him. He demonstrates self-awareness and, as mentioned, growth by stating, "She really helped me grow," and acknowledging the opportunities he was given. He shows an understanding of his own development. There appears to be a genuine gratitude rather than just relief at avoiding punishment. His specific acknowledgement that "she helped me get to this point" suggests he values the intervention, and it indicates a possible turning point in his attitude towards the legal system. Rather than seeing it as the enemy, he recognized how it contributed positively to his life trajectory. This moment represents a potential psychological shift where Youngboy might be developing a more mature understanding of consequences and support systems, and down the line would be something he'd end up using. Throughout 2020, he pushed further and further. In February, he dropped the mixtape Still Flexin', Still Steppin', which peaked at #2 on the Billboard 200. Then 2 months later, in April, he dropped the mixtape 38 Baby 2, which landed #1 on the Billboard 200. In September, he dropped his album Top, which once more received #1 on the Billboard 200. With all this success, you'd think life was amazing for Youngboy. The money, the cars and clothes, the freedom, it's more than he could have dreamed of as a kid in Baton Rouge. But in the album Top, we get to hear one of Youngboy's most introspective songs, All In. And the song has multiple lines that give an insight to how he's feeling and acting now that he's at the top of the game. He says, Came up out of that dirt pile, now I'm balling. He recognises the streets he came from as a dirt pile, showing although he might be grateful for what the streets made him, he'd never had any intention of staying there once he made his money. I wish 3 was on my left where my styrofoam is. As mentioned, 3-3 is essentially Youngboy's brother who's been with him for almost his whole journey, and is Youngboy's voice of reason at times. But whilst recording this song, instead of having that voice, he instead has styrofoam, which is likely referring to Youngboy's association with drinking the drug lean as a coping mechanism. Got up out of Cyprus, went to the woodlands, got a safe room in my crib. Ain't no telling when I'ma have to use it, we all know how I live. He moved from one part of Texas to another, the woodlands, a wealthier and safer place where he has a safe room, as he knows people are still going to be out to harm him, so there's no telling when he'll have to use it. But he lives with that paranoia. On top of this, in the next line, he says, keeping my gun everywhere I go, we all know I'm still here. Again, showing that need to keep his head on a swivel and look over his shoulder, as people might want to harm him, and the paranoia that comes from that. Praying for my daddy to come home, pray he get in a pill, hope he come take me away, keep me from off of these pills, and come get me from off of this drink before my kidneys say fail. Despite not having his dad around, he needs a father figure who can help relieve him of his drug addiction and drinking habits, and fears kidney failure, but needs a way to cope. 10 lines straight going on 10 days my body ain't got no fluid. Again, having large amounts of drugs on a binge, going days without rest until his body feels empty. Then the last verse, if I took the clean route, bank accounts got cleaned out, we'll still be at war riding with the mops trying to wipe the block down. 50 rounds at the bottom of that Glock standing in front of mum's house, steady screaming gang life, knowing my time coming round. Essentially, if he was still broke or went broke, he'd be back with the gang in Baton Rouge, shooting guns, knowing he's gonna die at some point, like many others from where he's from, who never made it out. All of this shows that despite being at the top of the rap game, Youngboy was still struggling to cope with the trauma and loss of his friends, resorting to heavy drug use. Despite making millions and having a big family to be happy about, the money and the family couldn't take the pain away, and perhaps at a vulnerable time for Youngboy, where he finally had some time to just heal and try to deal with his own issues, there was another rapper who tried to test his gangster. King Von was a rapper from Chicago who'd allegedly killed multiple people before becoming a rapper and rapping about his violent tendencies. I know it sounds crazy, but I've got a video explaining his dark psychology if you'd like to check that out. He quickly rose to stardom in the drill/rap scene between 2019 and 2020 and would allegedly use his money to put hits on his ops, similar to what Youngboy is accused of doing. His rise was helped by him being super tight with another big rapper, Lil Durk, and the two of them pushed each other's images in the rap game. But for seemingly no apparent reason at the time, Von would publicly start making subtle disses towards Youngboy, saying he isn't a real gangster, and he caps in his raps.
Youngboy talking about on this song, bro.
What?
He talking crazy on this man.
Oh yeah?
He ain't even like that.
Oh!
On his ass now.
On his ass.
Cap. You got cap in your raps. You got cap in your raps.
But whether he was just trying to grab headlines, or he genuinely wanted a problem with Youngboy, Von would end up linking up with Jania, the same one in that hotel footage, and the mother of Youngboy's 5th child, Casey. Rumours circulated that they slept together, helped on by Von initially, but both Jania and eventually Von claimed they just made a song together, which was apparently to make Von's on and off girlfriend Asian doll mad. Although Youngboy was no longer with Jania, he seemed to take offense to the situation and put out an Instagram post saying when his son grows up, he's going to make sure he sleeps with King Von's daughter since he's been trolling him. In psychology, this kind of conflict can be understood through the idea of an ego threat. An ego threat happens when someone's self-image or status is challenged, especially in front of others. It doesn't have to be physical, it can be an insult, disrespect, or anything that makes a person feel like their reputation is at risk. For Youngboy, Von's disses and the rooms with Jania weren't just personal, they struck at the core of his public identity. Being painted as not a real gangster, or having his child's mother linked to a rival publicly humiliated him. And that kind of ego threat almost forces a reaction, because ignoring it could be seen as weakness. King Von would rap in his song Mine Too, I got some beef up in NOLA, and I ain't even know it. I hear you rapping that gangster stuff, but now you gotta show me. He's clearly referencing Youngboy, and he's implying he wants to test his gangster. Youngboy would link up with King Von's ex Asian doll and make a song with her as well, releasing a snippet. On social media, these insults become more damaging because they're public, forcing rappers to either respond or look weak. The situations with Jania and Asian doll made things even more personal, going beyond just music rivalry. This was psychologically hard considering Youngboy's recent trauma from Girardi's death and his legal problems. He faced conflicting pressures, needing to stay out of trouble legally, while also needing to defend his reputation. The Asian doll situation caused Von to go on a tirade of tweets, getting in his feelings about it, but in an interview he would claim that it's all just for entertainment and him and Youngboy aren't actually beefing.
People told me you and Youngboy was beefing or something like that.
I know they
said
be
something
saying
about
that a lot.
what happened, father? What's going on with you, man?
They be saying that a lot. It's like we got the same issues and holes, and then you know how the internet will try to make it.
Don't tell me I got problems over girls.
No, it's the internet, gang. It's the you know, they'll try to make it like that because it's the internet. You see what I'm saying? And then you know how females will try to make it like that because they females, and they'll try to make it like one motherfucker hard. They try to, it be just all type of shit. But it ain't nothing too serious, nothing you should worry about.
But the following day, Von would perform at a show in Atlanta. But after the show, he got the location of Quando Rondo at a hookah lounge not too far away. Quando Rondo is an artist that Youngboy signed to NBA in 2018, where he didn't have any direct beef with Von. When Quando came out of a car, King Von walked up and sucker punched him before pounding him on the ground repeatedly. But Quando's friend Lil Tim jumped out of the car with his gun and shot Von 5 times, killing him. Unlike with G Money, Youngboy was happy to get involved with the dissing of Von following his death, even though he had no direct involvement. He would go on the audio-based app Clubhouse and say Von was trying to start issues to try help him climb in the industry, and saying they've now shown what happens to wannabe gangsters trying to stunt, referring to Von getting killed.
We see how this shit turn out with certain that come inside the rap game and feel like, oh, I'm the one who they gotta get into it with for the reach this certain point of what. Man, boy, you can stunt like your ass a gangster, boy. And I ain't gonna show you something, boy. We done seen this. We done seen this. You don't want to be a gangster too bad. You don't want to be a killer too bad, man. You better calm your stupid ass down, for you can't have no type of emotion no more, boy.
Then in Youngboy's song Bring the Hook, posted in January 2022, he raps, "This that Squid Game, O Block Pack get rolled up, murder what they told us, Atlanta boy get fold up," blatantly and overtly disrespecting the death of Von and O Block, the hood Von was from, without a care in the world. Then even more disrespectfully, he says, "Inside the freezer, where them people put him for they stitch his ass," where I assume he's referring to the leaked autopsy pictures of King Von that surfaced on the internet in late 2020. In the pictures, his body was stitched up at the morgue. Lil Durk was hurt by Von's death and the disrespect that followed and wanted to avenge it, so he waged war against Youngboy and Quando. He took to social media and said, "Don't claim it if you ain't do it, you still a bitch," pointing out that Youngboy had nothing to do with getting Von gone, so he shouldn't brag or be disrespecting as much as he was. That same month, Youngboy made a post where he made his money spell out, "You go and die," and Lil Durk responded making his money say, "Hurry y'all, shut us up." Then after Lil Durk dissed him in the song Aha in February, Youngboy responded almost immediately with an immense barrage of personal disses towards Durk and his crew in the song I Hate Youngboy. He raps, "Clean up on O, young and let that chop blow." By O, Youngboy is referring to O Block, and his young'un, Lil Tim, shot and killed Von, and he's mocking it. He called me a bitch, that's India, that be yo-ho. He calls Durk's fiance, India Royale, a bitch. Pussy dissing me, mad about his dead homie. He's claiming Durk is emotional because of King Von's death, and that's why he's choosing to diss Youngboy. They be hating on Tim and Quando, they act like they wrong. He points out how because Von died, and him being close to Durk who has big ties in the industry, the media portrays Lil Tim and by association Quando Rondo as monsters and killers, when the act was out of self-defense. Then on a different note, he raps, "Mama told for me to take my Ritalin and I said no." Ritalin is a brand for the methylphenidate drug. The drug is used to control behavioral problems and increases one's focus and attention. It's usually taken by people who are diagnosed with ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, a deficit that affects one's concentration span. Due to Youngboy not taking the medication, he seems to not be focused and is always on the edge, leading him to becoming more uneasy and destructive, perhaps why he's become so aggressive and disrespectful in this conflict. This kind of escalation can also be explained through status anxiety. Status anxiety happens when someone feels their social standing is being questioned, and it creates pressure to prove themselves. For rappers like Youngboy, whose careers are built on reputation, any public slight threatens not just their ego, but their entire identity as an untouchable figure. By responding with I Hate Youngboy and going after Durk, Von, India, and even the media, he wasn't just lashing out, he was defending his status in front of millions of fans. The more he felt that image slipping, the more extreme his disses became. In this sense, the violent lyrics weren't only music, they were psychological armor, a way of projecting strength to cover the insecurity of being doubted. But by mocking a dead rival, he does show a lack of empathy, treating Von as less than human and justifying the harm done to him. This behavior seems to respond to pressure from fans and peers who would view any softness in the situation as weakness. So the aggressive posturing continues even when it creates real-world problems. His comments on Clubhouse and lyrics in Bring the Hook and I Hate Youngboy are essentially reputation battles that turn grief and conflict into street credibility for Youngboy. And when Youngboy references refusing to take his Ritalin for ADHD, he's presenting himself as wild and uncontrollable, whether he actually has ADHD or not. This image of being impulsive and aggressive is part of his brand, but if he was talking facts, then stopping his meds and having untreated impulsivity would lead to poor self-control and that same reactive aggression he learned from his childhood, which would explain why he's not making the positive changes he said he would, not just in this situation, but his other legal issues around this time too. Because back in 2020, Youngboy alongside 15 others had been arrested on gun charges back in Baton Rouge. He bailed himself out and decided to move to Tarzana, a neighborhood in Los Angeles. However, an indictment was later filed for those 2020 gun charges, and police tracked him to his home and found him in a car, where he took off and gave chase. He eventually abandoned the car and escaped on foot, where he surrendered after they deployed canine units. To make things worse, a pistol was found in his car, along with cash and jewelry. As a convicted felon, Youngboy is prohibited to have possession of firearms, so more gun charges were added on, and this would lead to him spending most of 2021 behind bars. It was a weird switch up from a man who was not so long ago grateful for the system and understanding of how it was trying to help him. But then by trying to escape and run from the feds, it's like he all of a sudden didn't want it anymore. To me, it was more like embarrassment. I believe he truly wanted to be a better person, but circumstances didn't allow him to, and staying surrounded by these people who were clearly bad influences were no help. He didn't want to accept he was failing on his word, and that's why he tried to run. But despite his incarceration, Youngboy had already recorded enough music to release the album Sincerely Kentrell in September 2021, which reached #1 on the Billboard 200 chart while he remained behind bars. And the following month, he would get to leave jail on a bail for $1.5 million and be put on house arrest again, now with stricter rules, which he had chose to serve in Utah whilst he awaited trial for the gun charges. And I know house arrest is tough no matter what, but due to the financial abundance he had at the time, Youngboy had purchased a big mansion on 88 acres worth of land to serve this house arrest on, called Gravedigger Mountain. For reference, walking an average speed around the perimeter would take close to half an hour, so it wasn't all bad. And Youngboy even mentioned that house arrest saved him from self-destruction, as it actually helped him stay focused by providing structure and keeping him away from bad influences.
Do you think being on house arrest saved you a lot from a lot of shit?
Yeah.
In what way?
In a lot of ways. Self-destruction. It taught me how to, do a lot of shit on my own, like recording and shit.
And he would go on trial in summer of 2022 and was found not guilty for his LA case. A big win and boost for Youngboy.
How are you feeling?
Feeling great. It's this man here, bro.
Nope, it's all the people around us. And he was not guilty. He was innocent.
Never was guilty.
Never was guilty.
But things weren't all good for his members. On August 19th, 2022, Youngboy's artist Quando Rondo and Quando's cousin Lil Pab were at a gas station in Beverly Grove in LA, where they would become the targets of an assassination attempt. Multiple rounds were fired at them from a group of men. Lil Pab was hit and later pronounced dead. Multiple O Block and OTF members celebrated this death on social media, posting pictures of Von as if acknowledging it as revenge. Youngboy posted on his Instagram story that revenge was coming, calling the situation sad and real wicked. In November 2022, Youngboy and Quando dropped a collaborative album titled 3860, with Lil Tim as the only feature. This demonstrated Youngboy standing by his associates against Dirk and O-Block. The album continued the disses with lines like, "Yes boy, we smoked on him. To keep it real, he wasn't even strong," referencing how King Von punched Quando before Tim shot and killed Von. There were other disses and violent talk throughout, but interestingly, Youngboy later posted on his Instagram story, claiming he had begged for the tape not to be released. He wrote, "I talk to missionaries every day inside my home who probably gonna ask me about that tape. That not sitting right on top of my heart. But pay attention to what these people promote. They are evil and don't give a about us. I see why they didn't post my Stop the Violence message." In these statements, Youngboy appears to be expressing discontent with Atlantic Records, who released 3860, and with whom he had a rocky relationship with at the time. His mention of speaking with missionaries suggests he might be having a change of heart about the violence, and this would start a new chapter for Youngboy. In December 2022, Youngboy dropped the song titled, "This Not a Song, This For My Supporters." In this 8-minute track, he expresses regret for his past behaviour and concerns about misleading young listeners with his music. The song marks the debut for his Stop the Violence movement. Throughout the track, he actively discourages listeners from resorting to violence or crime, even when facing poverty and hardship. His lyric, "You are that you fightin'," appears to acknowledge the tragedy of intra-community violence, how those in conflict on the streets often share similar backgrounds and struggles. They're typically young black men facing poverty, anger, desperation and trauma, much like the dynamics between himself and Von, or himself and Dirk. At this point, Youngboy seems to be undergoing significant psychological growth and self-reflection. The Stop the Violence movement suggests a moral awakening and genuine regret about his past actions. He appears to be developing empathy towards shared community struggles, recognizing his social responsibility as an influential rapper and gaining awareness about cycles of trauma. This represents another potential turning point where Youngboy is trying to break free from the violence that has dominated his life and career, showing psychological maturity and a shift towards reconciliation rather than retaliation. And then to show further commitment, Youngboy and his longtime enemy Fredo Bang squashed their beef and plan to do a toy drive for kids in Baton Rouge on Christmas Eve, where they give out toys to the kids.
Did the two of you get on the phone together?
We talked.
How did that talk go?
It was basically us talking, and like I say, it's never been a problem. How can we show that it's never been a problem from the start? You know what I'm saying? Like, let them know it's never been a problem. We just don't talk to each other, and you know what I'm saying? We got history that we don't talk to each other, but it's never been a problem. So like, shit, let's do a talk. Let's do something for the kids.
Due to his house arrest, Youngboy couldn't physically be there, but the event still went ahead with Fredo Bang and other TBG and NBA members like 33, essentially Youngboy's brother, whom fans could never have imagined together. Even Youngboy's mother Sharonda was there. Also at the end of December, he released the song Letter to Big Dump, dedicated to his former manager who was shot dead. The track features Youngboy pouring his heart out whilst updating Dump on recent developments. He shares that he's put his gun down, mourns for those who have died, and describes his progress towards becoming less violent. Youngboy also mentions his efforts to stay sober and improve himself. In a moving moment, he asked Dump to tell his grandmother that he succeeded. And some of the things mentioned aren't the first time Youngboy has acknowledged them. For example, saying, "I cry every night for the ones laid down." This seems to be quite a common occurrence for Youngboy, to acknowledge that he cries a lot.
Like, yeah, think about it, I'm still a child, I still cry. Like, none of my niggas never see me cry.
Right.
But I cry, yeah, I swear I do.
And I'm not that strong.
That's important to be self-aware about, man.
I cry a lot. Literally. But I'm at a point I know it's okay. Like my wife, I don't know, bro.
Or when he says, "Look inside my eyes, I know they've seen evil, but I've been this way since I was a child and feel like I'm the one who deserved to leave here." It sounds familiar to the situation with Muhammad Jaradi, when he said it should have been him who died. And this also hasn't been the first time he's insinuated he doesn't want to be here.
Don't it feel kind of like you beat death in a certain kind of way?
Plenty of times. Sometimes you want to die though, so you don't feel nothing no more.
I don't think you really feel like that.
You gotta talk more. You gotta talk more, you understand.
I believe this kind of talk about insinuating someone take his life away is linked to Youngboy's survivor's guilt. Survivor's guilt happens when someone feels bad about surviving when others didn't. It's a feeling where you think, I shouldn't get to be alive when they died. This often appears alongside moral injury and can be part of PTSD or grief, or it can happen on its own. People with survivor's guilt often think thoughts like, if only I had done something different and I deserve to be punished, which leads to troubling memories, being constantly on edge, and feeling depressed. With losses to violence including Lil Dave, Boozilla, Big Dump, and possibly even G Money, Youngboy faces mounting grief as more people in his life get killed. This recurring pain becomes increasingly difficult to bear, especially since his probation prevents him from using drugs, which was his former method of emotional escape. But Youngboy stayed trying to better his life. In January 2023, he married his girlfriend Jaslyn Michelle, and he said, I'm happier than a mother. I've been waiting on this my whole life.
But you built a whole new foundation, man. You recently got married, and what inspired that to settle down that way and get married and move in that direction?
I always wanted to, and the woman I'm with made me actually want to rush.
That's how it works, brother. That's how it works. You gotta get the right one.
In February, an interview with Billboard revealed much about his state of mind and the negative view he has about himself.
I do want to feel positive about myself though one day. Like, alright, you did it. Nothing's wrong with you. You're okay to walk this earth. You're not a bad person. You're not someone who's f***ing it up.
Youngboy reflected deeply, expressing regret about the music he'd released that incited violence. He wondered how many people had heard his music and subsequently taken someone's life, feeling though he had blood on his hands.
Man, look at the I spoke about. Look at the shit I put in these people's ears. Man, I feel very wrong about a lot of things. How many lives I actually am responsible for when it comes to my music. How many kids and people have gotten in a car or put this shit in their ears and actually went hurt someone. And now I'm sitting back like, damn, I can't do it all in one day, but I promise to clean whatever I can clean.
By the interview's end, he firmly stated,
I will not be provoked, I will not be broken, and I'm not going back to where I used to be. Accept it or not, I ain't going back.
Asserting that his violent side was gone, he committed to staying strong and not entertaining provocation from others. He was shaken visibly during this interview. He explained that he had invited Mormon missionaries to his home because he was desperate to change. He had planned to be baptized in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, a ceremony that, in Mormon beliefs, offers forgiveness for past sins when someone truly repents. He's a man reflective of his life and looking for forgiveness from the bad he's done, the bad his childhood trauma shaped him to get involved in, and the bad he spread to the youth. And I wish our story ended there, and Youngboy spent the rest of his life finding peace and making positive music, but due to the provocation he said he wouldn't falter to, things didn't stay that way. In April, he dropped the album Don't Try This at Home, which featured violent lyrics and disses aimed at Von, O-Block and Dirk. Shortly after that, Dirk announced his album would release on May 12, 2023. In response, Youngboy declared he would drop a mixtape titled Richest Op on the same day. When it dropped, it included more disses towards Von and Dirk, demonstrating his retreat from the Stop the Violence message. The mixtape also featured Youngboy lashing out at the music industry, targeting major artists like Drake and J. Cole for allegedly siding with Dirk, while reiterating his claims of being blacklisted by music companies, which he believed was due to the companies picking Dirk over Youngboy and Quando after Von's death. It's interesting because since 2023, Youngboy's behaviour has fluctuated notably between positive and negative actions, making it difficult to determine his overall trajectory. During Christmas 2023, he spotted a family outside, mentioned that seeing them brought him joy, and proceeded to give them some money.
Oh fuck, look at NBA Youngboy running up at us right now.
Hey, nigga, you got a nigga out here shaking, fam.
Oh my God.
Hey, man.
Are you for real?
I posted your song today on my haircut.
Yeah, you G'd up with your family, bro. That made me so happy.
Oh, that's what's up. Thank you. Thank you.
You the realest out.
Oh my God.
Youngboy struggles with two different sides of himself, not because he's bipolar, but because he's torn between being tough for his street identity and being peaceful for his self-care. In his world, appearing tough earns respect, both from peers and from the fans. So when he's stressed, he lashes out with aggressive posts and disses. When he feels safe and supported, through probation rules, through faith, through family, he becomes remorseful and wants peace. His public Stop the Violence promises create inner conflict when his actions don't match his words. It's that same cognitive dissonance coming back again, so he repeatedly tries to change. I noticed this inner conflict when asked to talk about his Stop the Violence campaign in a Rap Radar interview.
And you also starting to stop the violence campaign, man. I like this. I like this direction that you're going in, Youngboy. Can you talk about that initiative?
Yeah, I really don't want to get off into it.
Yeah.
Man, that shit, I don't know. I don't think it's getting out of hand. There's a lot of like bitch ass niggas like starting to have dealings with a lot of shit.
Yeah.
This back and forth isn't a mood disorder. It's more like a struggle between two different roles, each encouraged by different people and situations in his life. But by the end of 2023, his mental health appeared to be under strain and he seemed eager for true freedom. Having committed to marriage and family life, Youngboy was attempting to mature, yet he remained isolated. And in 2024, things would get even worse. At the start of 2024, Youngboy was mentally exhausted about how his life was turning out. In a podcast he did in January, Bootleg Kev asked him what his plan is after music, but he claimed he's certain his future is sitting in a jail cell as you make the bed you lay in.
Do you have thoughts about what happens after rap?
I'm kind of set on going to jail right now, so I don't really think about too much.
He got to the point where he doesn't even run to the microphone to vent anymore, and he doesn't have that person to talk to. He feels lonely and isolated.
Do you have that person, or do you just internalize it, put it out through the music?
I don't even love music to that point no more where I run to the microphone and no, I don't got that person to talk to.
He says he just wants to be better than yesterday, and if he got to a certain amount of money where he could just disappear forever, he would.
I just want to be better than yesterday.
It's important, man.
I know, and if I get this certain amount of money and run and go away, I would.
He went to rehab and admitted he really needed that, and says the people there accepted him in a way he hasn't felt before.
You went to rehab recently. Is that something that has you found helpful?
Yeah, I really needed it time, and I met some very cool people, and I was accepted in a way I never was before. So I love that place.
I think rehab helped because amongst his gangster friends, vulnerability is probably rare. It's more acceptable to maintain a tough guy persona. In rehab, he was able to have deep, vulnerable conversations with people in the same position mentally, going through similar struggles, and in an environment where talking openly is encouraged. To be honest, many of his friends probably experience the same issues, but as men, especially in gang culture, there's a stigma against discussing feelings, so he likely never had those conversations. And still being on house arrest in Utah, the loneliness magnified. It was also revealing to hear how he views fatherhood in that interview. By 2024, Youngboy had 12 children, but admitted he's not really big on fatherhood because so much of his time is spent recording. At the same time, he said he still has a good bond with his kids.
How important is fatherhood to you, man?
I'm not really big on it, to be honest.
What do you mean by that? You're not big on it?
I'm 4 walls all day, every day.
When you say 4 walls, you mean locked in?
Yeah.
Just honed in on the music, recording?
Psychologically, this is the same conflict he's lived since childhood, caught between being present and being absent for the very reasons that once scarred him. His father went to prison chasing money, which left Kentrell fatherless. Now, in his own way, Youngboy chases music just as obsessively. The mic is his escape, but it also means he struggles to be more than a part-time dad. But in April 2024, everything changed when police raided Youngboy's home in Utah. He was arrested for what police called a prescription drug fraud ring. According to the charges, Youngboy and his friends were getting large amounts of codeine cough syrup used to make the drug lean by pretending to be a doctor and calling in fake prescriptions. Police also found guns in his house, which is illegal for him as a convicted felon. Psychologists call this kind of behavior a form of maladaptive coping. Coping strategies are the ways people deal with stress, but when those strategies are unhealthy, they can make problems worse instead of better. For Youngboy, the stress of house arrest, isolation, and constant legal pressure left him without the distractions or outlets he normally relied on. Turning back to lean wasn't just about getting high, it was a way of numbing himself from the loneliness and anxiety. From the outside, it looks reckless, but psychologically, it follows a similar pattern. Under stress, people fall back on the habits they know, even when those habits guarantee more trouble. After his arrest, Youngboy's house arrest was cancelled. He was put in jail for fraud, forgery, identity theft, drug and weapons charges, on top of his existing legal problems. Because he broke the rules of his release in his Louisiana gun case, that's where he was sent back to. Youngboy ended up in a Baton Rouge jail with no chance of bail. This was unfortunately ironic, because he had originally left Baton Rouge to get away from bad influences, but his attempts to cope with stress led to choices that sent him back to the place he tried to escape from. In November, Youngboy appeared in a Utah court and pleaded guilty to charges in his drug fraud case. He admitted to faking being a doctor to get the codeine cough syrup. On December 10th, Youngboy got his final sentence in federal court, which ended his long legal battle. The judge gave him 23 months in prison for the gun charge from Baton Rouge, 5 years probation after release, and large fines. During the hearing, the judge expressed how he wanted to help Youngboy improve his life. He told him to address his addiction and make better choices, saying he didn't want Youngboy's talent to be wasted by legal troubles.
Mr. Golden, I've seen so many times that good men and women who have a lot of talent and potential, that they can be robbed of that potential when they start to really struggle with their addiction. So I don't want that for you. You seem like a very talented young man. I'm hoping in your future that once you're done with your federal prison time, that you can be really successful on federal probation and have a really bright future where you can reach your full potential in every aspect of your life. Best of luck to you, Mr. Golden. Thank you.
Youngboy, now 25, had paid sorry and accepted the court's decision. With this sentencing, Youngboy's years of legal problems were basically over. He just needed to finish his sentence and then start rebuilding his life. He got out of federal prison after about 11 months, earlier than planned. He was originally supposed to be released on July 27th, but thanks to good behavior and time already served, he managed to get out earlier in late March. He then spent about 30 days in a Phoenix halfway house with a curfew, and by late April 2025, he was completely free. No more house arrest, but still on 5 years of probation. This was a big moment for Youngboy. For the first time in over 3 years, he could live without an ankle monitor or being confined. Right after getting out of prison, Youngboy released 2 new songs on YouTube, Where I Been and Shot Callin'. These were his first songs since becoming free, and they talk about his time away and his return. In Where I Been, he shares his feelings about the year he lost and tells fans he's back. Releasing music so quickly shows prison didn't hurt his creativity, just like when he was 14 years old and made those songs for Life Before Fame. He seemed excited to get back to work. Even though previously Youngboy said he wasn't interested in making music anymore and he was set on prison, his release seems to have given him new energy. He would also go on a run releasing some banger singles like Finest and Top Tingz. His new songs sounded as good as ever, like he was ready to take back his place in the music world. Then in mid-May, he announced his first tour in over 3 years, called the Make America Slime Again Tour, or MASA. But then the news would get even better, as President Donald Trump even gave Youngboy a full presidential pardon. This happened at the end of May, just weeks after Youngboy started his probation. The pardon erases Youngboy's federal convictions from the past year. This means he no longer has to take regular drug tests, no longer has to deal with travel restrictions, no longer has to attend mandatory rehab programs, and he doesn't have to serve that 5 years of probation. Youngboy shared his thanks online saying, "I want to thank President Trump for giving me the opportunity to keep building, as a man, as a father, and as an artist. This moment means a lot. It opens the door to a future I've worked hard for." For Youngboy, this was a complete fresh start with a clean legal record. He's now truly free without court supervision for the first time since 2020. Youngboy was not only out of prison, but was officially forgiven, allowing him to move forward with a clean slate. On July 25th, Youngboy drops his new album, MASA. As mentioned, Make America Slime Again. Ironically, or probably planned, the album title plays on Trump's famous slogan, Make America Great Again, and is his first full project since getting out of prison and receiving his pardon. Then before his tour started, he donated $50,000 to 2 nonprofits preventing crime and violence.
Rapper NBA Youngboy is in Dallas for the start of his first ever solo tour. The concert is Monday, but tonight the rapper donated $50,000 to 2 different nonprofits geared towards reducing violent crime.
Basically just to help try to stop the crime. You know, a lot of people be getting hurt. So it ain't really cool at this point to me. So I just want to help in any way I could.
At the time of recording, he's been carrying out his tour in the US, and I've only heard positive feedback from everyone who's been. He looks more content than before, and I believe he really is recovering mentally, learning from all of his lessons, and not taking his freedom and fans for granted. Youngboy's story has become one of redemption. He's changed from an artist stuck at home facing prison time to a free man who's more sober and focused. Not everything is as straightforward though. Internally, he's likely carrying that heavy trauma, and there's many things that could trigger or provoke him into his old ways without the right support system around him. Remember, this is a man who had a very difficult childhood, where he lacked stable parental connections and lost many loved ones, and he's always had to live a life on the edge. There's also the fact his fans and the industry in general still want to hear that tough, aggressive music from him, making him tap back into that mindset. He still likely feels that survivor's guilt to be touring on stage and escaping punishment whilst others died or are serving lengthy time in jail, but he can't dwell on that, because no matter how he got here, his time to take over again is now. Because after years of legal troubles and eternal struggle, Youngboy might actually now be finding some happiness.